Hello and welcome. My name is Tavishima Ayede. I solve sales challenges and I'm making today's podcast recording just outside the car wash, so expect to hear some noise in the background, although I've wound up the windows, so hopefully there won't be too much noise coming in while I'm waiting for the car to get washed. Now, the goal of this podcast is not to talk about how and where I get my car washed. It's actually to focus on business education. So if you like the stuff that you hear here, please spread the word so that your friends and family members at home, in Nigeria, and abroad can benefit from the questions that we tackle. And if you'd love to connect, you can hit me up. You can call, SMS, or WhatsApp on 080-6466-2140. Now, today on the podcast, I want to share a conversation that I had with someone, let's say like last night. Now, she's someone who reached out. She's a listener of the podcast. She likes all the things that we talk about over here. We had a very frank conversation about what it would take to engage my services as a coach and as a consultant, not just to work with her, but for her organization. And she was real upfront that currently they do not have the budget to afford my services, but she personally is interested in engaging my services as soon as she can afford. Now, of course, since I always make myself available to you guys, know how, especially if we've been talking, one-on-one, we've already built some sort of a relationship. I'm always trying to help people out as much as I can. Of course, I prioritize paying clients, those who have actually paid me for my services. Those are the people that I prioritize, but I try to answer as many people as possible. So I told her, okay, cool, no problem, we can work together. But in the meantime, here are a list of questions that you need to go and ask your Oga, so that by the time he answers these questions, you will be able to sell effectively in your role. Because most Nigerian business owners, people who set up a business, who run whatever it is that they run, they just assume that salespeople are born. They don't realize that salespeople are made, that you actually have to teach somebody to sell on your business's behalf. And I could tell that they hadn't given her any kind of training. So I just gave her a list of questions. Here's a list of things. Go and discuss with Oga. Once Oga gives you the answers, you'll be able to know how to sell. And so I gave her the list, and then she said thank you, and then she left. Then she reached out a couple of days later to say, bro, to be honest, I went to ask my Oga, and my Oga could not give me the answer to any of these questions. And I laughed. I said, I'm not surprised, because actually, most Ogas, most people who run businesses don't even critically think about these sorts of things. And in fact, the first thing on the list was the ICP. Who is the ideal customer supposed to be running after? Now, that is something that a salesperson needs to know, because if your number one job is to sell and then you resume work 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, but you have no idea about who you're supposed to be going after, then you'll just be faffing about. Online, you won't know who am I supposed to be talking to. If you go into the real world, you won't know, okay, which offices am I supposed to enter? You won't even know, which is why it is the first thing on the list and the most basic thing that I gave her. Because at least if the Oga can say, you know what, the people that we do business with best are men between the ages of 65 and 70 who live in Umuahia or, whatever. At least as a salesperson, you now have a very clear picture. You now clock it immediately. You now know what to do or where to go in the real world or online to start targeting men who are between the ages of 50 to 75 who are based in Umuahia. Or, forgive me, I'm just coming up with some examples. But the thing is, we have to know who the ICP is. So she told me, Oga doesn't know. But these are the things that Oga has tried. I said, okay, no problem. So this is what we're going to do. And this is the frank conversation that I had with her last night. So I told her, oh, okay, it's almost my turn for the car to get washed. So one moment, let me just pull up over there and then I'll continue this conversation. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. So it's my turn to get the car washed. So of course I've had to step out of the car. So I'm sure you guys have noticed that the noise profile has changed somewhat. There's more noise in the background. Anyway, so where was I? So, I think I was at the part where I was saying there are a couple of key things that those of you who own businesses need to know, and you need to be able to advise your salespeople on so that they can sell effectively. And one of them is the ICP. And I was having a frank conversation with a sales professional who was struggling, and I could tell that she hadn't received any training from her employers on these sorts of matters. And so I told her, I gave her a list of questions that she needed to ask her Oga. And then based on the answers that Oga would give her, she would now be able to sell effectively. And one of them was the ICP. Who's the ideal customer? Who's the ideal client? Who is the target? Who are we supposed to be chasing? Who are we supposed to pursue? We need these answers. And Oga said he doesn't know. And I'm not surprised. Because most Ogas, most business owners, they don't have a clear sense of who it is that we're supposed to pursue. You just have the product, you have the service, and you're trying to chase down as many people as possible and trying to get business from them. So I now gave her an exercise that she should go and do with her Oga. And this is what I advised her. And if you're listening to this podcast episode right now, and you've asked your Oga that question, that who is the ideal customer we're supposed to be chasing, and Oga doesn't have any information from you, for you rather, this is the exercise that you have to carry out with your boss. And this is the reason why you are the one who should be responsible for doing this. So this is what I advise her. Ordinarily, it should be your Oga who should call you up and give you advice on these sorts of things. But in the situation where Oga has not called you, or Oga is not aware of what the ICP is, it is you as a salesperson that has to take responsibility for these sorts of things. And this is the reason why. Because other people in the organization, they can faff about and nothing will happen. People in accounting, they can faff about. They can misbehave, they can waste their time. Nothing will happen. Because at least they can pick like 2-3 weeks before the end of the year, they will rush and they'll prepare a statement of accounts. People in marketing, they can faff about. They can do whatever they want. So long as at the end of the day, they produce pretty Instagram photos, Oga won't be angry. The people who are supposed to clean the company, those ones who they can faff about. So long as they pick 2 or 3 hours during the day and they make sure that everywhere is clean, the toilet is clean, they can misbehave. No, nothing will happen. But as salespeople, we are judged on the results that we bring. How many conversations are we having with customers? How many people are we bringing inside the shop? How many people are we bringing inside the office? Of the people that we brought to the shop, that we brought to the office, or that we're having conversations with, how many people ended up becoming paying customers? So for salespeople, those of us who have the responsibilities for bringing in revenue, all eyes are on us, very harshly, very critically. That's the reason why we have to take the responsibility for performing and for moving our careers forward. And that's why I told her she's a correct babe. Because ordinarily, Oga should pay for these sorts of things. She has reached out to try and get the support that she needs. She's honest that she cannot afford now. She's going to plan towards it later. But she's taking responsibility for developing herself. Responsibility for acquiring the information that is going to be able to make her a better salesperson. So, you're the one who should take the advantage for these sorts of things. Now, another reason why we should take the advantage of having this conversation with Oga and going through this exercise that I'm going to recommend right now is this. If you go through this exercise with Oga and his business partners, or, where your Oga is a woman, Oga and her business partners will now quickly see that you, in particular, you have sense, you have drive, you have ambition, you have good ideas, you're a correct person to keep around. You are a valuable asset to the organization. When they start seeing you in that light, good things will happen. I can't make any promises that they will double your salary or anything like that, but trust me, good things will happen because you are a valuable asset to have around. So this is the reason why you ought to take the initiative. And another reason why I told her she should take the initiative in this conversation, and why you should take the initiative in this conversation and this exercise with your Oga, is because nothing is set in stone. Eventually you're going to leave this organization. And when you do, if you have gotten into the habit of being proactive around these sorts of things, in whatever organization, in whatever clique, in whatever setting, in whatever setup that you find yourself in the future, you would have gotten into some habits and some patterns of thinking that will make you extremely resourceful where you're heading to. Because I can tell you, this is Nigeria. People have not seen an employee like you before who is willing to invest time and resources into developing themselves, and also willing to engage in conversations with their ogas and with their superiors to make sure that they have all the information that they need to deliver on the revenue goals of the business. I can assure you, people have not seen an employee like you before. So, let's stop beating around the bush and let me get straight to what the exercise was. I told her that she was going to have to do 3 things. When she gets back into the office, she'll say, Oga, please, if you're free, you and I will need to have a chat. And of course, most ogas now, they want to make money, don't they? And so because of that, trust me, ogas always have time for salespeople. If somebody in accounting says, Oga, we need to see, Oga will say, well, you know what, I'm coming, I have to go here, okay, I might be free for this, I might be free for that, when will you be free, But if a salesperson says, boss, you and I will need to have a chat, trust me, your guy will say, I'm coming to the office. You will see me in like 30 minutes. So don't worry, don't be scared. You just tell your guy, boss, we need to see. There's some things that we need to discuss. And trust me, your guy, he will show at the office. Or she will show at the office. And so I told her, these are the exercises that you're going to do with your guy. You tell your guy that, look, I'm committed to this organization, and I want to see this organization hit its revenue goals. I personally also don't like faffing about. I also want to make sure that I am the best I can be when I'm on this job. And because of this, there's some information that I need to do to be able to complete this job, to do this job well. I've gone online, I've asked around, and there's some exercises that we can do that will give us the information that we need to move things forward. So, Oga, you and I, we need to figure out the ICP now. And this is what we're going to do. Oga, can you please furnish me the records that we have? The people that have paid us money before to provide our goods or our services. Please, can I see it? This is the whole point of the exercise. When you look at those invoices, or when you look at those receipts, or when you look at those WhatsApp messages, or when you look at those invoices, or when you look at those whatever it is that you people have that you use to track who has paid you for your products or your services, by the time you start asking your guy some information about this guy, about that guy, about this babe, about that babe, about this customer, you will start seeing some similarities in psychographics and in demographics. Now, big words, but for those of us who studied, business studies in junior secondary school, remember, demographics means qualities like age, sex, height, occupation, location, all those sorts of things. So you will start seeing some similarities. Now, people that buy from us are usually a certain age, usually a certain job, usually of a certain income range, usually of a certain this, of a certain this, of a certain that. You will start seeing some patterns emerge. Then for those of us who studied business studies again in junior secondary school, remember when we're talking about psychographics are hobbies, interests, things that people like, all the soft stuff that people are interested in that you can't quite quantify. So when you start looking at these invoices, these WhatsApp messages, these whatever it is that you have, you will start noticing some similarities in psychographics. That people who buy from us are interested in these sorts of things or those sorts of things, or they have these kinds of hobbies, or they are drawn to these sorts of issues, or they are trying to run away from certain other kinds of issues. This is the beginning of you putting together a picture of who your ideal customer is. When you go through this exercise with yoga, you will now start having a clearer picture when you show up the next day to the office where you should be spending your time and investing your efforts to start chasing down customers. Because you would have already known that our ideal customer, people who have given us money in the past, tend to be either men or women of a certain age who live in a certain part of the city, who are interested in these sorts of things, or who don't like those sorts of things, or who run towards these sorts of things, or who run away from these sorts of things. You will now know where to invest your time. Let me give you an example. There was a time when my kids were younger where in traffic, people would stop me all the time and try to sell arts and crafts, sell painting, sell books, sell toys, and all kinds of things. And so I asked my wife one day, I said, how come these people always keep trying to sell me stuff about kids? And my wife said, that's easy. And I said, yeah, that's easy. How? Is it because I look like a father? And she said, no, it's not that you look like a father. There's a car seat in the back. And then I smiled. And I told my wife, yeah, you're actually right. It's that simple. For people who sell children's things in traffic, they know that if you see a dude sitting in a car who has a wedding ring and at the back of the car there's a baby seat, this person most likely has children of a certain age and will be interested in certain kinds of products. That is the reason why these people are coming straight to me out of all the other cars that are stuck in traffic and trying to sell me stuff. Because they know who their ICP is. They know their ideal customer profile. You see a man, you see a woman, you see a wedding ring, and then you see a baby chair at the back. Go and talk to this person or these people. These are the kinds of people who end up buying this or that or that. So that was my assignment that I gave to her. Go and talk to your Oga. Have this exercise. Get your transaction history. Try and figure out people who have given you money in the past. You will get a sense of who your ICP is. Then I also told her, now Oga, between you and me now, tell me, who are the kind of people that you want to pay money to us for the product or service? People who you think will be sweet clients. That is also an important question to ask. Because, you know what people say now? Now when how do they say it? When the available is, when the desirable is unavailable, the available becomes desirable or something like that. So sometimes you actually do want, oh, sorry, they're calling me at the car park. One moment, let me pause this and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about the constant switching back and forth. There was quite a queue of about like 4 or 5 cars when I got here. So I didn't think they were going to be, this quick when I started the podcast episodes. But anyway, they're done with my car, so I'm now back in the car. So hopefully we shouldn't have too much noise, trailers going past and all that, because I just wound up the windows. So let me finish this and then I'll head off for my appointment. Okay, now, I said that the second exercise that she needs to do with our guy is this. She needs to now ask our guy that, okay, we've looked at the transaction history. We've been able to figure out some commonalities in demographics and psychographics. We now have a physical representation of who our customers are, who they are, how old they are, whether they're male or female, where they live, their jobs, what they're interested in, what they like, what they don't like. Psychographics are important because if we're targeting people online with online advertising, that is the information that we're going to put in. So, the next part was now to have a frank conversation with Oga and say, look, Oga, now who are the people that you would like to pay us some sweet, correct money? The reason why that question is next is because sometimes you have a dream client you want to go after, but because you can't reach them now, you now settle for, some certain classes of people, the one that is in your front. Now that's not bad. And you can be using the customer that is in your front to be making good revenue while you're now strategizing and planning for the other customer that you actually want to get. Now, business owners, we all pass through this because back in my, my wedding photography days, please, no disrespect when I'm talking about these sorts of things. I'm not saying some classes of people are better than others. I'm just trying to talk about economic realities here. So I'm not trying to say some people are better than the others. Now, I appreciate all the brides that were Niger-based that I did business with. I really, really appreciate them, and I love them because they were responsible for me getting a career, building a career in wedding photography. Even the very first bride that paid me only 50,000 naira, I appreciate her and I love her because she's an integral part of my story. That is how I got started. Now, of course, eventually I figured out that 50K that I charged, was not worth it because I charged 50K and then I spent 47,000 naira in fulfillment. If you charge 50K, you spend 47K. Can you say that that's a good thing? In fact, when I gave Momsi the gist, because by that time I wasn't married, when I gave Momsi the gist, Momsi said, look, you would have been better off just staying at home and just transferring 5K to the bride and say, just, take and help with your wedding. But still, I love her because she was an integral part of my story. But at the time, the people who paid me best usually happened to be Niger in diaspora. So the babe lives abroad. The husband lives abroad. Maybe their parents are here, and the parents are the ones who are organizing things. Somehow, the bride and the groom get in touch with me. They hook me up with Momsi and Popsy, or they hook me up with wedding planner. And those were the kind of jobs that I like to do. That was, sweet, sweet money. And that was the first time that me and my brother collectively charged 1M for a job. Negotiate back and forth. Ended up paying, I think, about 880 or 870. I can't remember. It was this sort of thing. Niger in diaspora. So whether in the UK or America or Dubai, the clients, the people that I loved, that I would like to pursue, were all those people based in diaspora. But please remember, I am not saying that people who live in diaspora are better than those of us who are home-based. I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about some economic realities here. Now, for people in diaspora, they're used to paying maybe let's say 10,000 for a wedding photographer. Now, maybe like $10,000 or $5,000. So by the time they're talking to we, well, I'm no more in the business. But if I was still in the business, by the time they're talking to we, local photographers over here, and then we charge what is the equivalent of maybe $1,000 or $2,000, and they see the quality of our work. For them, they're like, what? This is a deal. Those people, they pay quick. No hassles. Because they know that if we're going to do this wedding in California or whatever, we'll pay $10,000 or $5,000 cheapest for a wedding photographer. But we're going home to do this thing, and I found a photographer for $1,000. Let me just pay now, quickly. Let me tie this thing down. So I'm just talking about harsh economic realities here. So I'm not saying that Nigerian diaspora is better than Niger homegrown. We're all the same. We're all equal in status. It's just that, because of, is it purchasing parity? Because of purchasing parity, they can afford more stuff with the dollars and the pounds that they have. So, where was I? What I'm just trying to say is, I understand, I've lived through it, and lots of business owners, we all live through it because we understand that this is the customer I have in front of me. But the customers I love, they're in front, and this is why. So still, we also have to sit down and do that exercise. So you ask your Oga, the customers that you truly, truly love, that you want them to be transferring big money into the account, bam, who are those customers? And then we start writing it down. That is the second exercise. That gives us food for thought for the future. How are we going to start targeting these people? How are we going to start running after these people? Now, when I asked that question, she said, she has asked her Oga that question before. And what the Oga said was government parastatals. And I said, good that you asked. But I told her that, look, that's still too wide. Government parastatal can be anything from CBN to NNPC to Ministry of Agric. That is too wide. So you need to have that conversation with Oga again. And he needs to narrow it down. When you say government parastatals, which kind of government parastatals? Is it the government parastatals that deal in extractive industry? In that case, you're talking about Ministry of Mining and Ministry of Works and Ministry of, all whatnot. Or is it government parastatals that are financial regulators? In that case, you will now be thinking of Ministry of Finance, you'll be thinking of CBN, you'll be thinking of SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. But Oga needs to narrow it down. You can't just say government parastatals. It's too wide. If as a salesperson, my job is to go after government parastatals and I come to the office tomorrow, 8:30, I'm supposed to be chasing government parastatals. That is too wide. I'll spend a lot of time faffing about and talking to the wrong people. But as a salesperson, you tell me that we're supposed to be chasing government parastatals and government parastatals that are regulators in the financial sectors. When I come and sit down tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., first thing I'll do is I'll Google government regulators, financial sectors, Nigeria. A list will come out, and then I'll start tackling that list. It'll be easier for me to do my job because the goal line is now clear. So I told her, go back, have that other conversation. Make sure that he narrows it down. Don't just let him off the hook. Don't let Oga say government parastatal and then you leave it like that. You need to know, are you going to be chasing Ministry of Agric? Or are you going to be chasing Ministry of Finance? Are you going to be chasing CBN? Or are you going to be chasing, I don't know, but you get the picture. You need to know. So that was the second exercise. Number one, look at your transaction history to get the demographics and psychographics of who your ideal clients are. Number two, ask your Oga, what is the wish list? Where are we going? Where would you like us to get some big money from? But then narrow it down. Don't be vague. So just like me, back then I was thinking Nigeria and diaspora, but Nigeria and diaspora is too broad. I would have helped myself and my brother if I was more specific. Nigerians living in diaspora, particularly in America or Canada, who live in this region or this region or this county or that county or that county. That is specific. That gives someone an idea of what kind of advertising campaigns are we going to run? What kind of content are we going to create to start attracting these sorts of people? So that's the second exercise. Then the third exercise, forgive me, I'm running from memory. And right now, maybe because of all this up and down, I can't remember what the third exercise was. But I know that I told her to do three things. Okay, let me see. So number one, transaction history. Number two, I remember the third. The third exercise was this. And I'm telling all of you now that are involved in sales and marketing. AI tools are here. They are free. They are on our phones. They are on computers. Why are you guys not taking advantage of them? If we had these things when my brother and I started in business, we would be certified big boys now. Because if I had ChatGPT then, and I was trying to fool around on ChatGPT to figure out my ideal customer profile, I would have realized that I was talking in too broad terms and that my marketing was ineffective because of that. Trying to target Nigerians in diaspora on a Facebook advertising campaign or an Instagram advertising campaign, that is too broad. All these tools would have helped me narrow it down. So I told her the third exercise is go and tell ChatGPT or go and tell Google Gemini or go and tell whatever AI tool that you like. Go and tell them, I'm a salesperson. I work for this kind of company. The company sells this. My bosses ideally would like us to target this, that. But these are the kinds of people that we have done business with in the past. With this information provided, give me 5 suggestions, 10 suggestions of who you think our ideal customer profile is, or who our best customer should be. ? Send. It will give you some ideas. The ones that make sense, keep. The ones that don't make sense, delete. And then I now told her, this is what you will do. You will now sit down with your Oga. You have done 3 exercises. Number 1, is transaction history, trading history, to try and figure out who are the people that have given us money in the past. Exercise 2 was wish list. Who are the people that we would love to transfer money to us in the future? Exercise 3 was to use AI tools for brainstorming. Compare these answers, and I told her, definitely, no how, you will see an overlap. The people that have paid you money before, some of it will overlap with the category of people that Oga wants to transfer big money to the business account in the future. And then some of it will overlap with some of those suggestions that ChatGPT or Google Gemini would make. That overlap, this is what I advised her. That is where you should start spending all your time to start finding customers. It's not a very scientific process, but trust me, when it comes to sales, there's plenty of trial and error, but this is not a bad way to start the trial and error. The part that overlaps, hit that part hard. You start seeing results. You start making progress after a while. But remember that sales is not like magic. It doesn't mean because you start talking to people today, they will start transferring next week. I mean, it depends on the product, the service, and sales cycle. Yes, because different products and services have different sales cycles. Now that I'm in the consulting space, it is possible for me to talk to somebody January 1st, and then by January 18th, they have transferred money. As a wedding photographer, that was not really possible, except if it's an emergency. As a wedding photographer, typically, it took about 2 or 3 months. Somebody will call me up in January because the wedding is like that kind March, April. So the sales cycle for wedding photography was that kind 2-3 months. For consulting, it's different. Somebody can hit me up now and they can pay the money next week. Shorter sales cycles. So it depends on the product. It depends on the service. It depends on the culture, the context, the traditions. It all depends. So if your product or service has, on average, a 3-month sales cycle, and you go through this exercise and you start executing in January, God willing, good things should start to happen, should start to reflect in your bank account by around that kind March, April. So, these are the exercises that we go through to be able to figure out our ideal customer profile. This is the exercise that I went through with the lady yesterday. And for those of you who would love to engage my services or the services of someone like me, but you cannot afford to yet, that is not a problem. We're still here. I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. And I put out these podcast episodes, 2, 3, sometimes 5, 6 times a week. So I'm not going anywhere. So don't worry. There's free resources here that you can take advantage of. Continue. If you feel like money is the problem, when you have enough money, no problem. You hit me up, I will continue from there. So, I'm making today's podcast episode for people like you who find yourselves in that situation. Go and talk to your Oga. Follow these exercises. When you do, you'll find that you and Oga will become 5 and 6. You'll say that this is a correct guy or this is a correct babe. They'll start to, before you know it, they won't be treating you like salesperson again. You kind of become more like business associate, especially when you start delivering the results. So, if nothing else, when at least you know who the target is, you'll be able to be much more effective when you show up at work tomorrow, 8:30, 9:30, 9 o'clock. Because at least you now know who you should be chasing after. Because before, you guys have just been using idea up and down. And if you are in this situation, don't worry, don't feel bad. That's just how most Nigerian business owners are. And I've given you my own personal example. In the beginning, I was just using idea. The people that were on ground, this is what they were paying me. The people that I loved in diaspora, this is how much they were paying me. Because of that, I love diaspora. But in my mind, if anybody had asked me, who is your ideal customer, your ideal customer profile, who is the main person we should be chasing, I would have just said Nigerians in diaspora. But that's too wide. Russia, that's Nigerians in diaspora. Korea, that's also Nigerians in diaspora. Canada is also Nigerians in diaspora. But we'll have to narrow it down. Anyway, 30 minutes. I think I have spoken more than enough. I think you guys get the picture. So if today has already finished at the time you're listening to this podcast, no problem. Just like I said, tomorrow you call your Oga, you say, Oga, please, I'd like to see you. There's something I want us to discuss regarding sales. I have some ideas about how we can improve sales. Trust me, your Oga will make time for that meeting, because that's the reason why he has hired you. And then you call him up and say you have some ideas. Trust me, he'll be happy, because he comes to work every day. She comes to work every day, and they're frustrated that, look, I have 5 salespeople here, and I just come and see their faces every day, and they're just gisting. They're not doing anything. They're irritants. They're irritating my life. So the fact that one of you say, Oga, please come, I have some ideas. I want to get your input. He'll be very happy. She'll be very happy. They will show up for the meeting. So tomorrow, 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30, call your Oga. Oga will make time for you. Sit down. Start having this conversation with them. And trust me, with diligence, with hard work, and with prayers, your life is not going to be the same again. And thank you for those of you who have been reaching out to me, who tell me that I've been listening to your episodes, I've applied this, and this is how much it has benefited my life or benefited my business. I'm going to start sharing some of those testimonials. I've been telling people that, look, I like what you say, and I really, really love the results, but I need people to believe me that this stuff works. So I want it to be in your own voice, not me saying I was talking to somebody and these are the results. Especially the copper who was getting 35,000 alawi, and she said based on the advice that I had given, she had now hit 3 months of earning over 100,000 naira. Some of you will say 100,000 naira, that's small. What can we do with that? Yes, I agree. 100k is small. But for someone who is starting at the level of 35k, you're now doing 3, 4, 5 months of 100k. That is minus your own alawi. It's a big thing for them. So for us, 100k is not going to solve our problem. But for them, it's something. And then it's another guy, alawi, also 35k. In fact, that's the one I'm going to play first. And then for him, he, how much was it? Based on stuff he listened to in a couple of episodes. In fact, in the audio, he referred to the specific episodes that he listened to. He went ahead, he put out an offer. 27 people took him up on it, and he ended up getting 97,000. Now, of course, 97,000 is not going to solve the problem for most people. But for somebody who has been living on alawi, remember we're talking about NYC people, for somebody who has been living on alawi of 35k, to now say that there's an extra 97 in the bank account is something. But anyway, thank you for those of you who apply this advice that I give out for free, and you reach out to say these are the results. Just know that I'll be happy and I'll still encourage you. But just know, I'm going to give you an assignment that, you know what, all this wonderful stuff we've spoken about, please record it in audio the same way I record the podcast, and just send it to me as an MP3 so I can put it up on the podcast. So from next week, I'm going to start sharing some of these testimonials. So that's it, and that's all for today. Remember, if you would love to connect with me, then call me, SMS me, or WhatsApp me on 080-6466-2140. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I will catch you same time, same place next week in your headphones or in your speakers.